Did he say Facebook? All right. Do you want me to go look and see?
It looks like we are, according to what
We're on.
It was YouTube. Oh, that's right. I'm not on Facebook.
We're streaming.
I'd have to get it on Facebook.
So let me begin by saying Shabbat Shalom to everyone. We actually have a very
Rabbi, you're muted. I'm sorry. Rabbi, you're muted.
I muted myself while muting everyone else. That's so sad. So let me begin again. I want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. I was saying a moment ago, and no one could hear me, that we have a very full evening, a very full service. Because in addition to celebrating Shabbat, it was, as we do every week, we're going to be honoring Dominic Margolis. He's having his bar mitzvah tomorrow afternoon, and a bit later he'll be leading us in the Vahafta. And we're going to have Lorraine Lundquist speak to us, who is a congregant but also an expert in environmental concerns. We're going to have some of our teen congregants reading a few pieces that they wrote over a year ago when we were in DC lobbying with a teen group. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But let's dive first into Tu B'Shvat. Because besides celebrating Tu B'Shvat, besides celebrating Shabbat, we are also celebrating Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat is literally the 15th of Shvat. It's a date on the Jewish calendar. And this date has become, through biblical and rabbinic tradition, the birthday of the trees. It's also called the New Year of the trees. So you like the birthday idea more, the New Year idea more, take your selection. They both work. And it doesn't just celebrate trees in today's world, it also celebrates plants, all growth, all of nature, and our environment, which we'll be talking about later tonight and really throughout the service. So the question arises, why do we have this birthday of the trees? Why do we have this New Year of the trees this time of year? Well, let's think about Israel and Southern California, because they have very similar climates. This is the time where we start to see trees become green again. We start to see flowers budding again. We start to see the elements of spring. We see the earth come back to life. It's as if all of nature is being reborn. And we hope that we are reborn too. Reborn as nature springs to life, so do we. Reborn as we get our vaccines, as we move back out into the world. But one of the original ideas of Tu B'Shvat is that we should honor it, we should celebrate it, we should observe it because of this line in the Torah. Every year you shall set aside a 10th part of the yield so that you may learn to revere your God forever. And this idea that every year there must be a moment we have to be reminded to take a 10th of our yield and give it to those less fortunate. So yes, Tu B'Shvat is about sharing our bounty, but it's also remembering that we have to care for our environment in order to have a bounty. In other words, it's our job to protect our environment. So now we're going to turn to page 644 because I've talked long enough, and we're going to have some music from the Cantor. She is going to lead us in L'chu Naranana. So please, if you have a book, page 644.
Page 130.
I apologize.
That is my
130.
mistake. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. נריע, נריע לצור אישנו, נקדמה פניו בתודה. נריע, נריע לצור אישנו, בזמירות נריע לו. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני.
So now we turn to page 142 for Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem is that song we sing about angels who come each week and they bless us. And then they move on to the next household. Shalom Aleichem, please, Cantor, lead us in this beautiful melody.
שלום עליכם מלאכי השרת, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם מלאכי השרת, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
The Israeli poet Shin Shalom once wrote a poem about the 15th of Shvat. On the 15th of Shvat, when the spring comes, an angel descends ledger in hand and enters each bud, each twig, each tree, and all our garden flowers. From town to town, from village to village, he makes his winged way, searching the valleys, inspecting the hills, flying over the desert, and returns to heaven. And when the ledger will be full of trees and blossoms and shrubs, when the desert is turned into a meadow, and all our land is a watered garden, the act of creation will finally be complete, and peace will come to all our world. We continue with Sadiq Katimar. It is found on page 140. Cantor, Shai.
צדיק תמר יפרח כארז בלבנון, יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהים. אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי אשר אדוני צורי צורי ולא עוולה תעבור.
A year ago, I was not at our Tu B'Shvat service. Instead, I was in DC with 5 teens, and we were attending a conference called Litaken. And there was a total of about 200 to 300 teenagers from across the country, Jewish teenagers, at this conference run by the Reform movement. And this conference teaches them how to lobby. And over the weekend, they learn all the different, aspects, how to put together a good lobbying session. And then on Monday, they go and they lobby. And they met with, representatives of Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein, and of course, Brad Sherman. And they talked to them and they pitched their ideas, these 5 teens, Julian, Maya, Eden, Matthew, and Ethan. And so today, while I was going through my computer, I was looking at old files. I typed in environment to see what would show up. And all of a sudden, a piece they wrote popped onto my computer. Because a year ago, before this pandemic, when we could go to DC, when we could legally pass through security without breaking any rules, because we would not break the rules, they lobbied on 2 issues. One of them was about criminal justice, and the other one was about environment. So at 3 o'clock this afternoon, I texted all 5 of these teens and said, join me at services. I'd like you to share what you wrote over a year ago. And they all agreed to do it. And then Maya had to pull out because she had another commitment. But we have 4 of our 5 teens tonight. So there's a structure to lobbying. And the first thing you have to do is explain why an issue is important to our country. And so Ethan Glucroft did that aspect of our meeting with Brad Sherman. So Ethan, if you start speaking, you should come on screen and I'll silence myself. Please share the piece you wrote.
Hello, everyone. A Native American proverb teaches we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. Everything borrowed must be returned. What will be returned to my generation if action isn't taken? A scarred land made by ever worsening wildfires, flooded cities, and infectious diseases. But if you take action, inspiring my generation to follow in your footsteps, we have the potential to create a land of beauty, a land of prosperity, and a land that reflects our highest values. We are facing a global climate epidemic on never seen before levels. The United States is only 5% of the world's population, yet we produce almost 1/3 of the world's greenhouse gases. This, according to the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, causes global warming. Additionally, our worsening climate will cause about 250,000 additional deaths a year between 2030 and 2050. Finally, at our current rate, it is possible that as early as 2030, the Earth will rise in temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius. This will cause incomprehensible and perhaps permanent damage to the environment. Some of these issues include intense heat waves, lowering crop yield, species loss, and the rise of sea levels, causing mass repopulation and damage to U.S. cities reaching into the billions of dollars. It is obvious that climate change affects every member of the United States and our world.
Thank you, Ethan, for sharing that with us. And it's amazing that you even included epidemics, infectious diseases in your speech, and we hadn't yet felt the effects of the coronavirus in the United States. So we now turn to page 138 for Lachad Odi. Lachad Odi is that song we sing each week, welcoming the Shabbat bride. We'll be doing verses 1 to 5 and 9. And when we get to the final verse, we will all stand up. Cantor.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונערכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בא אורך קומי אורי. אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. We're going to rise and face the door to welcome Shabbat. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
It's my honor to ask the Margolis family, to ask Dominic and his parents and his sister to join us on screen. If you unmute yourselves and begin speaking, you will appear. I believe you're going to say a few words about your Shabbat candlesticks, say hello to the community, and then light the candles.
Everyone, where's Sakina? I'm here. To go, come be with us, baby. Okay, good. Come be with us. Okay, let's put this over here.
If you talk a little bit louder, we'll be able to see you. Your screen should appear.
Hold on. Thank you for having us this evening. Thank you for joining us in celebrating our son's bar mitzvah, becoming a bar mitzvah.
Whoa.
It's very exciting. We have been looking forward to this for a very long time. We've only had to reschedule it 4 times. So this is a big deal. It's working. It's actually happening. So we would, I'd like to start by lighting the candles. There we go. Okay.
You are perfect. Now light the candles.
La 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 la. We welcome Shabbat. Bye bye shalom. Bye bye shalom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu bemitzvotav וציוונו להדליק נר וציוונו להדליק נר וציוונו להדליק נר של השבת.
So the next thing that our teens did while in DC was to talk about how Reform Judaism connects to this issue, the environment, what our government can do. And so we're going to have a piece written by Maya Beasley, shared by Julian Deculus, because during the meeting on the environment, Julian had the opportunity or the responsibility to introduce us, to start the meeting. But because of that, he didn't really get into depth on the issue. So I've asked him to read Maya's piece tonight, but he did a beautiful job a year ago, making our presence felt within our congressional offices. Julian, if you unmute yourself and start speaking, you should appear.
Great, thank you, Rabbi. Hello, everyone. Today is Tu B'Shvat, a Jewish holiday that celebrates the birthday of the trees. In today's world, many celebrations focus on our relationship to the environment. In Genesis 2:5, we read that the human being was placed in the Garden of Eden to till it and to tend it. This text allows us to know that as Jews, we have a responsibility to care of the earth for as long as we live on it. We are in partnership with God. This idea is supported time and time again within Jewish texts, especially within the Talmudic concept of Baal Teshich, which translates to do not destroy. This idea was developed by rabbis to preserve the environment and natural resources whenever possible. Jewish tradition is teaching us that we must care about our environment and that human domain over nature does not include a license to abuse the environment. Additionally, part of our responsibility in relation to the environment is to preserve it for our future generations. As Ecclesiastics Rabbah 7:13 recites about God speaking to Adam when he created the world, "See how beautiful and praiseworthy all of my works are. Everything I have created has been created for your sake. Think of this and do not corrupt or destroy my world. As if you corrupt it, there will be no one to set it right after you." This world has been created beautifully for us, but in order for it to stay beautiful, we must take care of it.
Thank you, Julian. That was wonderful. And Julian's heading off to college next year. Really quickly, Julian, what college are we going to?
I'm headed to Brown University in Nicole.
Mazel tov.
Thank you, thank you.
So now we're going to rise for the Baruch found on page 146. As he was just speaking about the responsibility of human beings towards the environment and this earth, about how we work in partnership with God, we must rise to say we agree with that idea. We rise to say we are present for these ideas and for this prayer service. So please let us stand for the Baruch please remain standing after the Baruch Hu, if you're able.
La 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 Adonai המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך המבורך לעולם ועד המבורך המבורך
We're now going to enter the Shema. As we enter the Shema, I would like everyone to stand or sit very still. We've been singing, we've been thinking, we've been sharing ideas. But when we say the Shema, we should focus. Focus on that idea of being, well, at one and united with all that is holy. We should be thinking about the holiness we can put out into the world. How every action and every word we have, well, that should be directed towards holiness. So let's take a deep breath in. And let's hold it. And let's let it out. And another deep breath in. And hold it. And let it out. And another deep breath in. Hold it. Connect. Connect to all that is around you. Connect to holiness. Connect to oneness. And exhale. We take one hand and cover our eyes so that we can focus on our words as Cantor and Shai lead us in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. We continue with the Michal Mocha. There's an old midrash that states that every blade of grass.
Let's continue with the Ve'ahavta first, because
My
Dominic will be
fault.
leading us.
Yes.
So, Dominic, if you can unmute and lead us with the Ve'ahavta.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Wow. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקצרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Yasher Koach, great job. I bet a bunch of Yasher Koachs are going to be appearing in the window right now. I already see him coming. You were great, Dominic. Really impressive. Really good work. And now we're going to move on to the Micha Mocha. And as I was saying, every blade of grass, according to an old midrash, has its own angel. So if you still have grass in your front yard and don't have a desert landscape, you got a lot of angels hanging out. And so why would each blade of grass need its own angel? Well, we're taught that each angel whispers to each blade of grass, grow, grow, grow. And obviously, the idea is this is a metaphor for us. We have angels that are telling us to reach to higher levels of being, to reach up, to be better, to be more human, to be good, to be more holy. Remember, if each blade of grass gets its own angel, I bet we do too. Listen to its voice and move forward. We're on page 158 for the Micha Mocha, unless I've skipped another prayer and the Cantor will tell me, but hopefully Micha Mocha, page 158. Cantor.
Yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Norat Eilot Osefele Malachutecha ראו בניך בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים Yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 Say Eli Anu לעולם, לעולם ואין. ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די די
So the next thing our teens did was to share a personal story about how nature has affected them, how the environment has affected them. And so Matthew wrote a piece. So I'm going to mute myself. And Matthew, if you unmute yourself, your image will appear and you can share.
Hello. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a hiker and rock climber. I've traveled around many different parts of our country to pursue my passion, and I've seen a myriad of beautiful landscapes. But I'm going to tell you about one particular hiking spot that was truly special to me then and still is now. From when my mother carried me on her back to when I was 10 years, my favorite hiking spot was Malibu Creek Canyon in Los Angeles, California. Malibu Creek Canyon was a relatively secluded mountain trail. It was a challenging yet exciting hike. And this hike, unlike other hikes, had a reward at the end of the trail. The end of this hike had a beautiful small lake. You could swim from one side to the other. Adjacent to the lake was a mountain climb, allowing you to jump like 30 feet into the lake. There was also a great established natural forming rock climb wall that a rock climber such as myself could and sometimes would enjoy. However, the glory of this lake would soon be gone. I remember asking Mom one day if we could go to this hiking trail for her to tell me that it was permanently closed by the city. So I researched this and found out that the city of Los Angeles needed to close the lake for health reasons, such as the temperature spikes of the water due to climate change and environmentally harmful farming, which created an excessive amount of algae. And this is the same story for other lakes in the country. While the loss of a lake affected a single hiker, there are more drastic environmental issues happening worldwide. We need to make a stand to not only preserve the beauties of our world, but to make sure we don't destroy our planet and all ways of life.
Thank you for that beautiful and personal piece of information. The story I remember being quite effective when we were sitting in Brad Sherman's office. And so now we continue with Vishamru, found on page 160. In Vishamru, we are reminded to both, well, observe and to protect Shabbat. Cantor, Shai.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ונפש, שבת ונפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם.
We now take a moment for the Mishra Barak prayer. If you're following in a book, we're on page 371. And we say the Mishra Barak for those who are ill of mind, body, spirit. And lately, my phone seems to be constantly ringing with people who have concern for their families and for their friends, because so many people this moment are being affected by COVID-19, either directly or indirectly. Because, well, if you're sick, if you're alone, even if you don't have COVID-19, it is a very limiting and scary experience. So we have to remember to reach out, to call, to talk to FaceTime, to Zoom, those who are not feeling well. They need our support. And it's very difficult to go and hold someone's hand in today's world, but you can still connect. You can still be a caregiver. You can still do that which is godly. You can reach out. So tonight on our Misha Barak list, Pamela Abraham, Hillel Baldwin, Sigal Barsad, Lenore Benjamin, Bert Brooks, Nancy Braun, Lucy Brunson, Debbie Dunner, Jackie Edry, Julio Flores, Phyllis and Martin Gilmore, Michelle Gordon, Mark Henderson, Paul Hiddleman, Herb Jaffe, Manny Katz, Nicole Kerner, Brett Kerner, Alex Kerner, Posey Kramer, Susan Landau, Stan Lieber, Francis Linsk, Joni Migadal, Arlene Nyberg, Joe Norden, Giovanni Salgado, Faye Willard, Ruth Bat Mechal, Joe Luttrell, those injured by insurgents during the Capitol riot, those Capitol Police who have had mental fatigue and distress because of the riot, those battling COVID-19, and of course, everyone caring for those who are ill. I've had some additional names added to the list. If you have more, put them in the chat window. I see Dave Oren, Bethany Love, Wendy Marcel, Muta Manavu, Annie Jeff, Bennett Iden, Barbara and Ted Korshak, Sam Shimshon, Ben Shimshon Vikeren, Leah Bat Rachel, our country, Joanne Shapiro. Mishaberak Avatenu Vimatenu. May the God of our ancestors grant a refuah shlema, a complete and full healing to all those named tonight and to all those we hold in our hearts. And together we say, Amen. Now the Cantor will lead us in the singing of Mishaberach. Cantor.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So when you go to Congress to lobby, the last thing you do is you share a legislative call to action. And so I'm going to have Eden, who wrote this piece, share this with you. Let's remember, they did this a year ago before the pandemic hit. Should be sharing, though, the actions we take, well, through the Reform Movement, through the Reform Movement's Religious Action Center, through its youth arm. This is what she wrote and shared with Brad Sherman's representatives. So I'm going to mute myself now and let her speak.
Climate change means not only the loss of a beloved lake, but the potential loss of an environment at large. We want to thank Brad Sherman for his sponsorship and continued support of the 100% Clean Economy by 2050 Act, which will help us as a nation transition into the future of clean energy and into a safer world. As you know, not only will this bill set a precedent for the entire world, but it will ensure equity for workers who currently rely on the stability of the fossil fuel industry, making this bill have a strictly positive impact on not only the environment, but the economy. On behalf of the Religious Action Center, we ask you not only to continue expressing your passion for this issue, but also to urge your fellow representatives who are not already backing this bill to educate themselves and to think deeply about whether or not their current stance is the right one for them.
Thank you very much, Eden. That was perfect. I was very proud of the 5 teens that went to DC with me a year ago. It feels like 10. And I was proud of the topics they picked, and I was proud by the way they presented themselves. And so tonight you got an example of what it means to be, well, a Reformed Jew. Because Reformed Jews believe in the prophetic movement, and they believe in helping changing the world. It is one of our core ideas that we just don't pray, we just don't meditate, but we move out and we change things for the better. And that's what these teens did. So now we are going to rise. We are on page 164. We're going to stand, if we are able, for the Amidah. Cantor.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח מוריד הגשם, מחלקה לחיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ולמען אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
If you have a physical book or a digital book, please read through page 180 Or if you don't have a book or prefer, pray from your heart. Noah and Shai, you ready to go, or would you like to hold the melody until after the speaker? Oh, there you go.
For some reason, it didn't place the lyrics, and we wanted to make sure that you had the words. So going back to what Rabbi John was talking about the blades of grass, a beautiful song by Naomi Shemer is called Shirat HaAsavim. It was written, like I said, by Naomi Shemer and based on the word of Rabbi Nachman. And it's a beautiful song connecting prayer and nature. And it is a beautiful tribute to this world. So this is Shirat HaAsavim. דע לך שכל רואה ורואה יש לו ניגון מיוחד משלו. דע לך שכל עשב ועשב יש לו שירה מיוחדת משלו, ומשירת העשבים נעשה ניגון של אוהב. כמה יפה, כמה יפה ונאה כששומעים השירה שלהם. טוב מאוד להתפלל ביניהם וביראה לעבוד את השם, ומשירת העשבים מתעורר הלב ומשתוקק, וכשהלב מן השירה מתעורר ומשתוקק אל ארץ ישראל. אור גדול אזי נמשך ועולה מקדושתה של ניגון של הלב ומשירת העשבים נעשה ניגון של הלב.
Yasher Koach, that was beautiful. So tonight we have a guest speaker, Dr. Lorraine Lundquist. Now you might just know her as the mother of Jonah, Desi, and Naomi, but she does much more than that. She earned her PhD in physics at UC Berkeley, but she transformed her career after her degree to focus on policy solutions to climate change. She felt so passionate about policy solutions at the local level that she ran for LA City Council. And sadly, she lost. I know we all wanted her to win, but it was a narrow loss. She received 49.4% of the vote, and I'm sure that the next time she runs for office, she will be victorious because everyone thinks so highly of her. Right now, she's teaching sustainability at CSUN, is a clean air board consultant for Supervisor Sheila Kuhl, and she advocates for local solutions to homelessness, racial inequity, and the climate crisis. She and her family are proud members of our temple. I'm going to mute myself, and Lorraine, if you start talking, your face and your image should appear.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay? Great. Well, I am so excited to talk to you tonight on Tu B'Shavat, celebrating Tu B'Shavat. This is such a beautiful day in the Jewish tradition that I really cherish. And on Tu B'Shavat, we specifically celebrate nature and plants in particular and trees in particular. And so I want you to take a moment to close your eyes and just think back to a tree that has been meaningful to you at some point in your life. Maybe it was a tree that was outside your window when you were growing up as a child. Maybe it was a tree that you remember looking up at when you were lying down in the grass somewhere. Maybe it was a tree in a forest that you encountered that was particularly beautiful. Just envision that tree and envision yourself looking at that tree, and envision yourself and how you felt when you were looking at that tree. I think that we all have a story about a tree sometime in our life that's been meaningful to us. And if you don't, I hope that you find a tree that you can find that's beautiful and meaningful to you. But I think we've all been nurtured by a tree at some point in our life. And so many times we talk about the need for us to take care of nature. And, Ethan and Maya and Julian and Matthew and Eden all spoke to that and spoke to the need for us to take care of the environment that's around us. But one of the main reasons that we need to do that is because the environment is taking care of us. And trees, in fact, are nurturing us. And so I just want to talk to you tonight about 3 heroes of mine who realized that trees were in some way taking care of them and what that inspired them to do with their life. Just briefly, if you'll stay with me for a moment. My first hero that I want to speak to you about is named Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai is a woman from Kenya. She was, in fact, the very first woman in her country back in 1971 who earned a PhD. She earned her PhD in biology. She became a professor and taught about biology, but that wasn't enough for her. She really wanted to help her community. And she found that planting trees was one of the most important ways that she could improve the quality of life for the people around her. She argued that planting trees would improve the water supply, would improve the outcome for crops that were growing in her village, and would improve the natural environment for everyone. As a matter of fact, she inspired so many people to plant trees that together she and a number of women's groups that she worked with and inspired planted 20 million trees. In fact, she even went on to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, and she was the first woman from Africa to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. So trees for Wangari Maathai were a way to improve the actual living circumstances of the people in her village and of the people in her region. And that's why she encouraged people to plant trees. A second hero of mine is named Andy Lipkiss. Now, Andy Lipkiss is from Los Angeles. And also back in the 1970s, he was a young teenager. He was 15 years old. He was in high school. And he heard in his high school science class that the trees in the hills above Los Angeles, in the forests around Los Angeles, were dying because of the smog that was so bad, the dirty air that was so bad in the city of Los Angeles. And so he, as a kid, got a bunch of his friends together and a bunch of his schoolmates together, and he convinced people to go and plant trees that were smog resistant in the Angeles forest. Trees that not only were smog resistant, but could actually clean the air and help make the air cleaner for everyone. And then when he was 18 years old, he founded an organization called Tree People back in the 1970s that is still around today and is still continuing to plant trees around the city of Los Angeles. They've planted a number of trees in school sites. They've actually taken up concrete and replaced it with beautiful nature areas in a number of schools around the city. And so to Andy Lipkiss, trees were, again, a way to improve the quality of life for the people around him, a way to create cleaner air for people in the city of Los Angeles. And this was back in the time when the air in Los Angeles was a lot dirtier than it is now. If you know someone who was alive in that time, people will say that when they were kids, when they were playing outside, that sometimes their chest would hurt when they would breathe the air in Los Angeles. And so I am inspired by Andy Lipkiss and his inspiration of seeing trees as a way to take care of the people around him. And then the last hero that I want to speak to you about, her name is Amanda Gorman. She is also a young woman from Los Angeles. She is alive today. I first had the pleasure of meeting her and seeing her speak when she recited a poem at the climate reality training that came to Los Angeles in 2018. She recited her poem called Earthrise, and I will put a link to her performing that poem in the chat after I finish speaking. But if you know Amanda Gorman, you may know her because she was in the news recently, not too long ago, because she recited a different poem that she wrote at the presidential inauguration that happened on January 20th, just 9 days ago. And in this poem that she wrote, she also spoke about trees. She actually quoted from our first president, George Washington, and she quoted from a letter that George Washington wrote to the Toro Synagogue in the early United States. And this letter was a letter from George Washington assuring the Jews in the synagogue that they would be free to practice their faith in this new country that we were creating, that everyone would be able to practice their own faith in the way they saw fit in this new country. And he quoted from Hebrew scripture, and she also quoted from the scripture that he quoted, which says that everyone shall sit in safety under their own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make them afraid. So to George Washington and to Amanda Gorman, trees are a place of safety. They represent freedom and sanctuary and a place where we can all be safe. And when she spoke about this quote from scripture in her poem, she said, "We will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. There is always light If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. So I want you to think about these three heroes that I am inspired by, and I want you to think about the way that trees have been meaningful to them and the way that they discovered that trees take care of each of us and nurture us. And I want you to think about the way those trees inspired those folks to go out and do amazing things and make a difference in their world. And I want you to think about the trees that have nurtured you in your life and what they might inspire you to do and what your vision for the world might be and how you can go out and create that world and create that vision in the world. Thank you.
Yasher Koach, that was just perfect. I love the stories. And as you said, imagine a tree. I think I imagined about 10 of them. And then I had to select one, which was even more difficult. So thank you. I really enjoyed your words tonight. So now it's my honor to ask Rob Moline to start talking. He's got some announcements for us. He is our president, and we have to thank him for all the great work he has done, especially over the last 10 months. He's really kept this community together. So thank you, Rob. And now if you unmute yourself, you can give some announcements.
Well, thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, Rabbi John, again, Cantor, Noah, and Shai for a wonderful service. Lorraine, loved your speaking and your words tonight. Thank you so much. I had the pleasure of going to high school with Andy Lipkiss and was well aware of the work he was doing back then and the creation of Tree People, and very happy that it endures today. Congratulations to Dominic and the Margolis family. Wonderful job tonight, and we applaud and celebrate along with you Dominic's bar mitzvah. We know it's been a long haul to get to where we are, and congratulations. He'll have a wonderful bar mitzvah tomorrow. Also want to thank the students who spoke tonight, Julian, Matthew, Eden, Etan. Good work. Hopefully this pandemic will be over soon and you'll be back in DC and up in Sacramento and continuing your lobbying efforts. Look forward to that. Also, thank you for sponsoring tonight's service to Matt and Lorraine and your wonderful family. It's always a pleasure to see you all, and we look forward to being together. Your Thursday email that comes out details all of the wonderful education events and the different meetings that our community has. We want to encourage full participation, whether it's the adult education classes, the weekly Torah studies. We've got Jewish wisdom for when there may not be one right answer, taught by Sam Klein. Just a lot of activities to keep you engaged. Want to bring attention to next Friday, Shabbat. Lisa Sage, a member of our board, will be speaking. Encourage everyone to come to that evening and hear Lisa as she talks in regards to disabilities, her own, and how people with disabilities continue to make wonderful contributions to our society that we need to be aware of. The youth continues to meet in our lounge. Also want to encourage those who like football and like playing poker. We have squares available for the Super Bowl game next week. And we also want to encourage everyone to participate in the virtual poker that we have as well. Love seeing all the dogs that are with us tonight and the cats, and especially enjoy the fasteners on the head. So keep that tradition going as well. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Stay safe. Keep wearing your masks. Be healthy.
Thank you, Rob, for making those announcements, and once again for all you do. I just want to let everyone know that we will be moving towards Purim as our next holiday. And we're already coming up with a theme, which we'll share probably next week with everyone. We want everyone to dress up, create fun backgrounds for their Zoom, and to really participate. We'll have a spiel that we're going to be doing. We're going to try to make Purim as fun as possible on Zoom. So please start telling everyone you know to plan on joining us for Purim. So now we turn to page 598 for the Mourner's Kaddish. We think about those that have passed recently and those that have passed, well, during this season in former years. So on our recently departed list, Marianne Bornstein, remembered by Florence and Irwin Ames. Howard Friedman, remembered by William Friedman and the Friedman family. Louis Cano, remembered by the Cano family and the Kol Tikva community. Michael Warner, remembered by the Pasternak family. Officer Brian Sicknick, remembered by this nation. Jackie Greenfield, remembered by the Fields and Moline families. We also think about those who died during this season in years past. Anna Albach, Morris Mobalkin, Sarah Gail Bass, Mildred Chersky Blair, Elise Bomberg, Regina Brandon, Herb Cheritz, Bob Cohen, Rudy Drews, Philip Gunner, Raina Edelman, Janet Garish, Saul Ginsberg, Samuel Greenbaum, Earl Greenberg, Henry I. Cash, Benjamin Coral, Edna Kodik, Sandy Lauer, Florence Levine, Ethel Levine, Jeanette Lezak, Harry Joseph Lieberman, Bruce Reed, Pearl Robinson, Morris Rosen, Ida Sachs, Ruth Sachs, Kayla Savage, Riley F. Schneider, Meyer Sherrick, Lou Sherwood, Emmanuel Shoshan, Marilyn Stein, Edmund Stockton, Miriam Stone, Rhoda Vickman, Miriam Wallens, Carol Williams, and Ann Zebrak. If you have additional names, please put them into the chat window. Helene Levy, Cicely Tyson. Anyone else? I'm now going to add the words of the Kaddish to the chat window so we can all have them in front of us. If you're in the first 7 days of mourning, I'm going to ask you to rise. If you're in the first 30 days, Shloshim, I'm going to ask you to please rise. If you're in the first year of mourning, I'm going to ask you to please rise. If you're observing a yortzeit, I'm going to ask you to please rise. And now I'm going to ask the community to show their love and their support by also standing. We take a moment and think about the person we were remembering. And now we recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba, v'almad yivrach yirteh v'amlech malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayeh l'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarak le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'rechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yoshvei tevel v'imru, amen. May the one who makes peace on high grant peace to all who mourn, to all Israel, and Yoshvei tevel, to the entire world. And together we say, amen. You may be seated as Cantor begins to lead us in our closing song, Oseh Shalom. If you're near someone, reach out, hold their hand. And if you're not, then reach across the screen, because we are one community that has come together tonight to pray, to learn, to sing. Please, Cantor.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ועל כל
And so now we're each going to hold up our Kiddush cup. And in my darkened room, I can't find my Kiddush cup right now. So everyone needs to hold theirs. I can't see mine right now. So I want everyone to hold up their Kiddush cup as we go around. I'm going to turn it back to Cantor. She's going to do a short Kiddush because we're running late tonight, directly into our Hamotzi. Kiddush to Hamotzi. Go for it, Cantor.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ בתיאבון.
And now I'm going to unmute everyone. I'm going to put us into a different view, gallery view. And everyone can wish each other Shabbat Shalom. I apologize if I didn't get to highlight you.
Shabbat Shalom, Pam, and
Hey,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
I'm still
Shalom.
drinking.
Gorgeous hats.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. That's a masterpiece.
That's a good one.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Check the gallery.
Shabbat Shalom.
Not a good one.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Vicky.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Tina.
Shabbat Shalom, Erwin.
Arlene.
Shabbat Shalom, Friedman.
Yes. All right.
Wonderful service. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Great.
You did a good job, Rob.
Yeah, those are good announcements.
Thank you, everyone.
I don't know.
Good night, everyone.
And
Bye, Peter. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
New name for Lisa next week.
we will.
Yeah, I'm good. Dr. Karen.
Shabbat Shalom, Vicky.
Put us on leave.
Shabbat Shalom.
My
Everyone say Shabbat Shalom.
Mazel tov.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mazel tov.
Be beautiful tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know he's going to do good. He's
He
gonna do
will.
good. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, Vicky.
Shabbat Shalom.
That's from the kitchen. He's hollering.
Did it say chips?
Keep turning your head away.
Oh, there's a bourbon now. Oh,
They're not there.
Good week.
Oh.
Lisa and Rick.
See you all later.
Hi, how
All
are you? Another piece of bread.
Shabbat shalom. Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom, Vicky.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom, everybody.
Hey, Monica, do you
Shalom,
see my
everyone.
message to you?
I did, but I wasn't quite sure. You want me to do it to the side?
No,
Or
no,
you want me to do it like that?
like that. That's how you speak into it.
And Sharon.
So you speak it to this side of it. So if it's up like this, you don't
Right.
speak to the top, you speak to the
Okay.
side.
Whoops. Okay, like this?
Yeah, it's perfect like that, yeah.
Just like this? I accidentally pressed something, but you hear me good?
I can hear you fine.
All right, this is the
And
way.
we'll be on early and I'll test the mic with you and make sure you've got it set up right before we start tomorrow.
When do you want us on?
I usually get on about 15 minutes early.
Deal.
Okay, see you 15 minutes early. Okay.
It's a deal. Look up, Dominic.
It's a
Thumbs up.
deal.
It's a
Dominic,
deal.
you were awesome tonight. Awesome.
Right?
Wow.
We're very proud. We're all very proud. All right.
This is great.
That's Lisa and Rick.
Hi.
Yeah. Lisa and Rick. Shalom.
Hello, Florence. Hello, Erwin.
Hello,
Hello,
Rabbi.
Tony. Hello, Sharon.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
Aaron.
All right. I'm going to end the meeting now because we have Shabbat dinner to eat.
Okay.
Oh.
See
Bye.
y'all later.